And Magnus doesn't get much tougher than that.
But this time he's not going to get an easy draw.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Magnus is gonna give him a draw with the white pieces.
Magnus is back at it. The English opening. He's played c4 more times than I can count already. The move he promised our audience. And this is a proper English. This is a really modern line with the black queen coming out and then just going back. And it took me a long time to kind of get my head around the fact that white couldn't take advantage of those two free tempi, but it's essentially a reverse Sicilian.
I think I've seen you have this position against Michael Adams, is that correct, in last year's British Championship?
Yeah, you know everything, Ariane.
I mean, I follow your games. But I remember Magnus also played this with the black pieces against Prague in the World Cup. So he has some experience from both sides here.
Yeah, and Pranav, I thought he was frozen, but the wind is carrying the kind of sheet behind him on the wall. So he's just locked in, super focused, and debating whether to agree to this knight exchange.
Would you trade knights here, David, or would you?
I think I would. I don't know. I've seen similar lines where it's kind of advisable to trade knights. Otherwise, the black knight just struggles to get to a better circuit. And you just need a couple of moves. If you move the rook just to defend this pawn, get the bishop out somewhere, it tends to be solid enough for black.
Yeah, very solid. He's probably going to play a rook b8 now. David pointed out. And it actually goes c6, which is surprising. But the point is that actually if you take the pawn, you lose on the spot. Or, no, actually you can maybe get away with it. No, you can't. Like, take the pawn. Get a very funny variation there. Take the pawn. Pranav would go bishop g4. It looks like it's trapping... I mean, it is trapping the queen, but white can go c7, get a forcing line. But I think black wins material there in the end.
Yeah, there might be some ideas with the rook hitting the bishop. Magnus is thinking about it, though.
Maybe he just has to go queen e2 here and safeguard the queen.
Yeah, get the queen to safety, or maybe just step a pawn forward to prevent the black bishop trapping Her Majesty here. Okay, Pranav has forced Magnus to think the pawn move was played, and suddenly slightly better for black. Pranav, you played him, Ariane. How would you define his style?
He's very, very tricky. Like, before the match, I knew that I always have to look for tricks. Like, he's a player, calculates really well, also fights very well in bad positions, extremely resourceful. Like, putting Pranav away from a good position is very, very hard. So when I also played on a team with him in the European Club Cup, he had so many swindles, and I was sitting next to him to witness. So very entertaining player. Like, I maybe he's not like super positional player. He's still gonna improve there, but he already has so many skills.
His personal high in this Title Tuesday format is 9 points. So he's up there, but he hasn't been all the way up there.
Okay, so he's on course potentially for a new record. The Title Tuesday Swindler, I like it. Pranav, can he do that to Magnus this time? It looks level, although long term, this black pawn, it's either very strong or it could potentially be a weakness, could drop off the board. If there's an exchange, for example, the white rook comes up.
I like black's position here. I think Pranav should just play e4 and then try to play queen f5. Okay, takes on d4.
Ooh, it does feel like your move, just kind of keeping the tension, blocking it up, that was the more ambitious. Maybe because he's playing Magnus, he wants a bit of simplification.
I think Magnus is happy to see this, though. And like, now, if Magnus puts the queen on f3, his king is always going to be very safe.
Go for Magnus's king. That was the moral of the story.
Yeah, and here, like, you can give this check on c6, but after queen f3, Magnus gets to trade the queens, and the a4 pawn is potentially weak. Although it's not clear, of course. Like, black can put the bishop on e5, and this diagonal is annoying. So it's a very interesting position.
Yeah, and there we see Magnus was bopping along with the music. It looked like he was much more comfortable now, and Pranav maybe just not getting his type of position, because he did simplify things. He did clarify the center. If it is an endgame, then he knows Magnus suddenly becomes the favorite. Pranav spending a minute there almost on the last couple of moves, and exactly that sequence that you predicted there, and the white rook now can start targeting some pawns.
I think it's important to play rook b4 here, because otherwise, if you go like rook c4, maybe black gets a tempo with pawn to b5. Goes rook d3.
Okay, just keeping everything protected. He's going to maybe use the other rook to step across. Oh, it does feel like this is all the makings of a Magnus masterclass. Typical endgame grind here with this black pawn stepping forward but becoming a bit of a target. I'm expecting the white rook now just to sidestep one square to break the pin.
Yeah, rook b1 looks very logical. And there's some tricks in the position, like after rook b1, if you protect the pawn on b5 with the wrong rook, you can drop the a4 pawn there. So rook b8 here. I still like black's position. It might simplify, like white maybe play something like knight to d5, but white Magnus really wants to win in this game. Like if he draws, it's kind of having 3 draws in a row would ruin the tournament situation.
And okay, we see an exchange of pawns. So I think best case scenario now for Magnus Carlsen is to win this pawn, but even that will not guarantee winning chances. 4 versus 3 in terms of pawns on the other side of the board, on the king side. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be a long, long battle. Especially if the knights come off, I think that might be helpful for Pranav.
But I think in this time format, like the 4 against 3 with the knights on the board, very, very difficult to defend. So I think Pranav missed this sequence, rook c8, rook a8, that he cannot defend the pawn here. And this has now really gone Magnus's way the last 2 moves.
Are we finding that the players, as they play this format more and more, are getting better at making pragmatic decisions that is fitted for the format?
Yeah, I think so. There have been some fantastic moments over the last few weeks where we've seen players trade off into, for example, rook versus bishop, which over the board with increment is just a dead draw at this level. But they know with a rook versus a bishop, you can play around forever. You can sit on the opposite color complex to your opponent's bishop, and you can guarantee 50 more moves. That means you'll probably win on time in the process. So there have been these little kind of tricks of the trade that the players are getting used to. And Pranav here desperately trying to get those knights off the board if he can, because a rook endgame without those pieces would be so much easier to defend. But it looks like Magnus has been doing a good job. He's keeping those knights on the board. Rook trade imminent. Big winning chances.
Pranav doesn't look too happy here. I think he's shaking his head there. And also 1 minute down on the clock. This is so difficult to hold. Like Magnus is probably just going to trade rooks now and play on the clock.
Okay, he brings his rook up. Won't change much. There we go. He does finally exchange some rooks. Magnus always puts a pawn as far as he can down the board, especially on the A and H files. He just leaves them there for later. They cramped the black position. They clamp down on any pawn breaks.
95 though? 95 here?
Ooh.
Yeah, I think Magnus missed that actually.
Oh, yeah. He reacted a little.
Yeah, it was not his... He definitely didn't want to allow the trade of knights. He forgot that the e3 pawn was hanging. So this is going to get more entertaining now. Like Pranav is also a fast player, but I really think with the time advantage that Magnus should be able to take this one. But he has to do some dirty flagging.
Yeah,
he's dirty flagging or just flagging?
It's always dirty.
It's dirty. It's, some dirty flagging.
Yeah, I think it's defined as dirty if you're not winning on the board and you flag your opponent or you try to win on time. Here, you could argue that Magnus is making progress. He's going to try and push through at the right moment. He's just preparing to block some checks with his rook. If black checks, there will be a block. But he's preparing to create a passed pawn. And I think even over the board, it's difficult for black. There's going to be problems. I've seen Magnus win very similar endgames in the past. Yeah,
this kind of pawn construction with a pawn on h5 makes it very unpleasant for black to hold.
And there we go. Going passive was enough already. One very natural move from Pranav, showing that Magnus now should be winning. Maybe the king sneaks forward. Nope, he blocks. The king's going to come around the other way, potentially. I'm waiting for Magnus to bring his king round.
King e4, yeah.
And eventually the idea is, okay, now he's found a safe haven for his king. Checkmate was threatened in one move. The king's running away. Now Magnus will bring his king back. Okay, the other way. And this pawn is running through. No way to stop that touchdown. Magnus is so precise in these endgames. We thought he's going to go with the king to f5, but plot twist. Plot twist. He just knows everything. He sees everything. He's played all of this type of position before. And Pranav... Yeah, unfortunately, it was the type of position where Magnus is just unparalleled. 10 seconds. He's fighting on, but this pawn is going to decide the game. The white rook will move across. There will be a block, or the king will step out, and he'll just try and find those last details. Just king d8. The pawn can't be stopped. Can't be stopped. There we go. A block, and a new queen will land. Magnus gets the win. Important for the standings. Pranav